My name is Taika, and I'm 32 years old. For the past few years, my life has felt like a perfectly crafted lie, a beautiful glass sculpture that's slowly, silently cracking from the inside. From the outside, you might see a successful woman, an independent spirit navigating the bustling chaos of New York City, always with a ready smile and a witty comeback. But peel back that veneer, and you'd find a woman constantly battling an invisible enemy. The lingering echoes of a family who, in their own misguided way, chipped away at my foundations. My apartment, with its panoramic views and minimalist decor, often feels like a gilded cage, a place where I can truly be alone with the quiet hum of my own unaddressed pain. The irony isn't lost on me. I craved this solitude, yet it's also where the questions started to echo loudest. "Why are you so distant now?" they'd ask, their voices tinged with a mix of confusion and mild accusation. The answer, often unspoken, was simple: because you mocked the very thing that tried to heal me. It was a Monday evening, about 2 years ago, when the dam finally broke. I was on the phone with my mother, trying to explain, for what felt like the 100th time, why I needed to keep my therapy appointments. Her dismissive laugh, followed by my father's mumbled agreement in the background, was the final straw. "Therapy? What do you need therapy for, Taika? You've always been so strong. Are you sure you're not just overthinking things again?" That's when I realized, with a sickening lurch in my stomach, that they would never understand. They couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge the profound impact their words and actions had on me. It was a moment of stark clarity. My healing was my responsibility, and theirs was to remain in their self-imposed ignorance. This story isn't just about my journey through therapy. It's about the agonizing distance that grows when the people who are supposed to love you the most invalidate your pain. It's about how the very act of seeking help can create an unbridgeable chasm, leaving you to navigate the echoes of their derision while they wonder why you've become a ghost in their lives. If you've ever felt misunderstood, unheard, or judged for trying to heal, you'll understand. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own experiences in the comments. The first time I mentioned therapy, it was almost an accident. My older sister, Clara, had called complaining about a work colleague, and somehow the conversation veered into mental health. I cautiously brought up my own struggles with anxiety and how I was considering seeing a therapist. There was a pause on the line, long enough to make me regret saying anything at all. Then Clara's voice, a little too bright, a little too saccharine, cut through the silence. "Oh, Taika, you don't need therapy. You're just a bit dramatic, aren't you? Remember that time you cried because you couldn't find your favorite pair of socks?" Her laugh, a light, tinkling sound, was echoed by my mother's booming guffaw in the background. It wasn't malicious, not overtly, but it was dismissive. It was the sound of my feelings being trivialized, reduced to a childish tantrum. That was the first echo, a preview of the chorus to come. My parents, bless their hearts, were from a generation where therapy was for crazy people, or, at best, a luxurious indulgence for those with too much time and money. Emotional resilience, to them, meant bottling things up, putting on a brave face, and getting over it. My attempts to explain the nuances of anxiety, the physical manifestations of stress, or the crippling self-doubt that often plagued me were met with blank stares, quick changes of subject, or worse, jokes. "Are you going to lie on a couch and talk about your childhood, Taika? Are they going to tell you it's all our fault?" My father would quip, a smirk playing on his lips. The mockery was subtle at first, a raised eyebrow here, a knowing glance there. But it escalated with each session I attended, each small step I took towards understanding myself. My weekly therapy appointments became a running joke, a punchline at family dinners. "Has your therapist given you any profound insights this week, Taika?" my uncle would ask, winking at my cousins who would snicker. It was never direct confrontation, always this insidious, undermining sarcasm. It seeped into everything, making me feel like an alien, an outsider in my own family. The more I tried to articulate my experiences, the more they laughed, and the deeper the chasm grew between us. The initial sting of their mockery was a constant companion, but with each passing week, I found a surprising resilience growing within me. Therapy became my sanctuary, the one place where my feelings were not just acknowledged, but explored with genuine curiosity and respect. Dr. Evans, with her calm demeanor and insightful questions, was a revelation. She didn't tell me what to think or how to feel. She guided me towards understanding why I felt the way I did. We started with the immediate anxieties, the persistent hum of worry that had become my constant companion. But as we delved deeper, the threads of my current struggles began to unravel, leading back to the tightly wound knots of my childhood. I started to see how my family's dismissive attitude towards emotions had shaped me. Growing up, any display of sadness or anger was met with immediate redirection or, worse, invalidation. If I cried, I was told to stop being silly. If I expressed frustration, I was lectured on being grateful. The message was clear. My feelings were inconvenient, a burden. I learned to suppress them, to put on a brave face, to be the strong one my family expected me to be. This constant suppression, I realized, was the root of my anxiety. It wasn't just overthinking. It was a lifetime of unexpressed emotions fighting for release. Dr. Evans helped me connect the dots. Their mockery wasn't just about my therapy sessions. It was an extension of their lifelong pattern of emotional dismissiveness. My parents genuinely believed they were helping me by telling me to toughen up. They saw my vulnerability as a weakness, and my attempts to process my emotions as a sign of fragility. It was a heartbreaking realization, but also a liberating one. It meant their mockery wasn't a personal attack on me, but a reflection of their own inability to navigate complex emotions. This understanding, however, didn't lessen the pain. In fact, it amplified it. It was one thing to be misunderstood. It was another to realize that the people who were supposed to be my safe harbor were actively contributing to my emotional distress, even if unintentionally. The more I understood myself, the more I changed. I started setting boundaries, saying no to things that drained me, and prioritizing my well-being. This, of course, was met with even more confusion and veiled criticism from my family. "You're so sensitive now, Taika." My mother would sigh as if sensitivity were a disease. My newfound assertiveness was labeled stubbornness, and my need for space was interpreted as distance. The unraveling of my old self, the one who constantly sought their approval, was creating visible ripples in our family dynamic, ripples they clearly found unsettling. Their questions about my distance, which were once subtle, started to become more direct, more frequent, and more loaded. The growing distance, though painful, was also a testament to my newfound strength, a silent rebellion against years of emotional neglect. As my healing progressed, so did the emotional chasm between me and my family. The casual jokes about my therapy speak evolved into pointed questions, laced with thinly veiled resentment. "Why don't you come to family dinner anymore, Taika? Are you too busy with your inner child work?" My brother, David, would ask, his voice dripping with sarcasm. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the insinuation that my personal growth was a betrayal of our family. I tried to explain. I truly did. I attempted to articulate the profound shifts happening within me, the way I was finally learning to validate my own feelings, to understand my triggers, to navigate the world without the crushing weight of unexpressed emotions. I spoke about the importance of setting boundaries, of protecting my peace. But my words seemed to hit a wall of incomprehension. They would nod politely, their eyes glazing over, or interrupt with a dismissive laugh. "Oh, Taika, you're so serious now. Remember when you used to be fun?" The message was clear. They wanted the old Taika back, the one who absorbed their jokes without complaint, the one who put their needs above her own, the one who never dared to rock the boat. The silence that followed these attempts at explanation was deafening. It wasn't a comfortable silence, but a screaming one, filled with unspoken accusations and simmering resentment. I felt like I was speaking a different language, a language of emotional honesty and self-awareness that they simply couldn't or wouldn't understand. The more I tried to bridge the gap, the wider it became. I started avoiding family gatherings, the very thought of enduring another round of their good-natured teasing filling me with dread. Texts and calls became less frequent. I found myself making excuses, prioritizing work or friends over family obligations. It wasn't intentional maliciousness, it was self-preservation. Each interaction felt like a battle, a constant need to defend my right to heal, my right to be a different person than they expected. The silence screamed of their fear of change, their discomfort with my newfound authenticity. It screamed of their inability to confront their own roles in my emotional struggles. And it screamed of the loneliness that comes with growing beyond the people who raised you, when they refuse to grow with you. The "why are you so distant now?" questions became more frequent, laced with a genuine bewilderment that was almost heartbreaking. They couldn't fathom that their own dismissiveness, their own mockery, had forged the very distance they now lamented. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. As I embraced the quiet solitude that had become my refuge, I also discovered a powerful new voice within myself. The turning point wasn't a grand confrontation, but a series of small, quiet victories within myself. Through therapy, I had begun to excavate years of buried emotions, giving them names and space. The anger I felt towards their invalidation, the sadness over their inability to truly see me, the frustration at their willful ignorance. It all had a place now. This internal shift slowly began to manifest externally. I started to speak up, not with aggression, but with a quiet conviction that surprised even myself. One evening, during a particularly uncomfortable family video call, my mother launched into another one of her jokes about my therapy addiction. Instead of offering a forced laugh or changing the subject, I took a deep breath. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "I know you think it's funny, but it's not. My therapy sessions are helping me deal with a lot of things, and your comments make it harder for me to feel comfortable sharing anything with you." The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mother looked genuinely taken aback, her usual quick retort caught in her throat. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. It wasn't a dramatic victory, but it was a step. I had used my voice not to argue or defend, but simply to state my truth. This newfound assertiveness wasn't about punishing them, it was about protecting myself. It was about defining my boundaries and communicating them clearly, even if they didn't like what they heard. I began to prioritize my mental health above their comfort, something that felt revolutionary. If a family gathering felt too draining, I politely declined. If a conversation veered into familiar territory of invalidation, I gently steered it away or, if necessary, ended the call. It was incredibly difficult, and often it was met with passive aggression or thinly veiled guilt trips. But with each act of self-preservation, I felt a little lighter, a little freer. I also began to seek out connections with people who truly understood and supported my journey. My friends, who had always been a source of comfort, became even more so. They listened without judgment, celebrated my small victories, and offered unwavering encouragement. These connections became a vital lifeline, a counterpoint to the emotional barrenness I often experienced with my family. Finding my voice wasn't just about speaking up, it was about listening to myself, trusting my intuition, and building a life where my emotional well-being was paramount. It was about creating a new narrative for myself, one where I was the protagonist, not a supporting character in someone else's drama. The more I connected with my authentic self, the less their judgment held sway, making room for a different kind of freedom. The quiet reckoning wasn't a sudden storm but a slow, persistent drizzle that eventually eroded the pretense of normalcy. My family's questions about my distance became less accusatory and more bewildered. They'd call, and after a few minutes of strained pleasantries, the inevitable question would surface, phrased almost identically each time. "Taika, are you okay? You just seem different. We miss you." They meant the old me, the one who was always available, always compliant, always willing to shrug off their jabs. But that Taika was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more self-aware, and ironically, less willing to be emotionally accessible to those who had consistently dismissed her. I'd try to explain again, not with anger but with a quiet, almost melancholic honesty. "I'm doing well, Mom. I'm focusing on myself, on my well-being." Sometimes I'd even venture to say, "The distance you feel is a consequence of how our interactions have made me feel in the past. I need to protect my peace." These words, spoken calmly and directly, seemed to hit them differently now. There was no immediate scoffing, no witty retort, just a heavy silence, followed by a hesitant, "Oh, well, we just want you to be happy." It was a small shift, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The mockery had stopped, replaced by a confused, almost mournful acceptance of the distance. This quiet reckoning was a painful process. It meant grieving the family dynamic I had always wished for, the one where my emotions were safe and valued. It meant accepting that some relationships, no matter how deeply rooted, could only exist at a certain distance if I was to preserve my own sanity. I realized that their "why are you so distant now?" wasn't just a question, it was an unwitting admission of their own discomfort with the consequences of their actions. They had pushed me away with their dismissiveness, and now they were surprised by the empty space they had created. I didn't gloat, nor did I feel triumph. Instead, there was a profound sadness, a recognition that while I had found my healing, they were still trapped in their own patterns of emotional avoidance. The reckoning was not about making them understand, but about understanding myself and accepting the reality of our relationship. It was about acknowledging that sometimes loving someone means loving them from a distance, protecting your own heart from the very people who claim to love you most. The quiet acceptance of this new reality brought a profound sense of liberation, allowing me to reshape my future on my own terms. The distance, once a source of pain, slowly began to transform into a space of liberation. I was no longer defined by their expectations or their judgments. I was building a life on my own terms, a life where my emotional well-being was the cornerstone. This meant cultivating relationships with people who genuinely saw and appreciated me. My friendships deepened, evolving into a supportive network that truly understood what it meant to navigate complex family dynamics. I found solace in my work, pouring my energy into projects that resonated with my values. My apartment, once a retreat from their scrutiny, became a true home, a sanctuary where I could breathe freely. I also began to explore new avenues for personal growth outside of therapy, though my sessions with Dr. Evans remained a consistent anchor. I started journaling, a practice that allowed me to process emotions in real time and track my progress. I joined a mindfulness meditation group, finding a sense of calm and presence I had rarely experienced before. These practices reinforced the lessons learned in therapy, teaching me to trust my inner wisdom and to quiet the incessant noise of external expectations. I was learning to be my own best friend, my own advocate. The "why are you so distant now?" questions still surfaced occasionally, but their sting had dulled. When they came, I would answer honestly but briefly, without feeling the need to over-explain or justify myself. "I'm doing well, enjoying my space," I might say, or "I'm focusing on what I need right now." There was no anger in my voice, just a calm assertion of my boundaries. I no longer felt the desperate need for their validation or understanding. Their questions, once a source of frustration, now felt like echoes from a distant past, fading into the background of my newly built life. This rebuilding wasn't about cutting them out entirely, but about redefining the terms of our engagement. It was about creating a relationship that honored my needs first, even if it meant less frequent contact or shallower conversations. It was about accepting that while they might never fully understand my journey, I no longer needed them to. I had found my own path, and on it, I was strong, resilient, and finally truly myself. As the past receded, the path ahead unfurled with clarity, illuminated by the lessons learned and the strength gained. Today, 2 years after that pivotal phone call, the situation with my family remains complex, but my emotional landscape is vastly different. The constant hum of anxiety has quieted, replaced by a deep sense of self-acceptance. While my parents and siblings still occasionally lament my distance, the pointed mockery has largely subsided. They still don't fully grasp the impact their dismissiveness had, or how their refusal to acknowledge my struggles forced me to create the very space they now regret. They see the consequence, but not the cause. And in a way, that's okay. My healing was never about making them understand. It was about understanding myself. The main lesson from this journey is profound. Your healing is your responsibility, and it's worth protecting, even if it means creating distance from those who don't understand or support it. It taught me that genuine self-care sometimes looks like emotional boundaries, even with family. It taught me that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And it taught me that while love can be complicated, it should never come at the cost of your own mental well-being. The distance they lament is not a punishment. It's a testament to my growth, a necessary boundary I erected to protect the fragile new self I was building. If you're reading this and feeling unseen, unheard, or judged for your own journey of healing, know this: you are not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your need for support is legitimate. Don't let anyone diminish your pain or mock your efforts to heal. Find your voice, set your boundaries, and prioritize your peace. It's a difficult path, but an incredibly rewarding one. I invite you to reflect on your own relationships. Are there areas where you need to create more space for your own well-being? What steps can you take, however small, to honor your own needs? This journey has been a testament to my resilience. I am no longer the girl who bottled up her emotions, silently absorbing their jokes. I am Taika, a woman who sought help, found her voice, and built a life rooted in authenticity. The distance isn't a barrier, it's a foundation, a testament to how far I've come. My heart, once bruised and guarded, is now strong and open, capable of loving from a distance while remaining fiercely protective of its own peace.